and abundant blessings that we have in our city. And we thank you for the good quality of life that we have here in our community. We are also thankful for our city leaders and city employees who so generously give of their time to serve our city. I pray for our mayor, city council members, and others who serve our city in various capacities. Give them the wisdom that they need as they work through the agenda for tonight. Help our leaders as they govern and make decisions on various issues. Grant them the ability to work together in a peaceable manner as they consider the needs of the city and its residents. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and be seated, please. Ms. Collins, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Brown? Here. Ms. Caruth?
Present.
Mr. George?
Here.
Ms. Harris?
Here.
Mr. Sims?
Here.
Mr. Tripp?
Present.
Mr. Wiley?
Here.
Mr. Westcott?
Here.
We have a quorum.
We have a quorum. Council, in your package, you should have been provided the minutes from our meetings last month. If there's no questions or comments or corrections, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Okay, all in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That will bring us to the finance report. Mr. McCoy, how are things going?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. General fund for May, revenues were $1,053,661, which put us up 6.96% above our projections. Sales tax receipts were $816,824. Franchise fees and permits were $113,043. Expenditures were $982,638, 2.05% above our projections. Year-to-date receipted $194,057 more than expended. Street fund operations receipts were $194,154. That's 0.95% below our projection. Sales tax receipts were $411,245. New sales tax was $49,292. Street fund expenditures were $279,276. It's 12.79% above the projections. Sales tax improvements were $357,879 for overlay, and capital was $58,111 for equipment. Economic development receipts were $44,060 for May, $38,770 new sales tax, $5,290 in interest. Expenditures were $357,511 for the Arkansas Valley Alliance and the fire department. Capital assets, revenues were $321,164. $317,000 was new sales tax, $1,304 was a refund, and $2,859 in interest. Expenditures were $1,314,516 to City Corp, Aquatic Center, Fire Department, Police Department, and Parks. For year-to-date, our sales tax revenue to budget is 3.74% above our projection, which is $128,000. Actual sales tax dollars to 2016 to 2017 is 0.53% up. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. McCoy? Thank you,
Thank you.
Jerry. For the mayor's report, I'll keep it kind of brief tonight. You heard from Mr. Frazier at the airport during the finance meeting. Most of you were here. One thing he did not mention is that he's expecting a call this week or next. The fuel truck that council bought should be ready to pick up in Mississippi in the next few days. So they're moving along on that, so we can have a truck race, because a few members of the fire department are going up to Where? Chief? Chief? South Dakota, hopefully to pick up the new ladder truck. Oh, to inspect. You making them walk back? That's, okay, cool. Everything else is going all right then. All of our other departments are doing fine. You heard from Jerry about the budget. We're staying on track. So that's always good news. I have one little housekeeping item I'd like for you to consider. Well, I've got two that I probably should share with you. Number one, the appointment to the Planning Commission. I thought we were all ready to go. I talked to a couple of council members today. Then I called the chair of the Planning Commission back, and we agreed he can make it fine this month without that, and so we're gonna wait till July, and I'm gonna give the council my short list, and I'd like to get your input on it. That's all right. So we'll put that off, and the last little thing I'll update you on, I walked in from a meeting this morning or was trying to walk in, and I was met in the parking lot by a process server. We have now been served on the lawsuit from Premium Protein, and as I've gotten older, I've gotten better judgment. I'm just going to leave it lay right there. We'll give you an update when something is a little more firm. So that will conclude my report, and I'll call on Fire Chief Sloan to tell us how things are going downstairs and all over town.
You know it.
First off, thank you for having us tonight. And I want to thank those that made it to our open house Thursday and tell you that we sure wish the rest of you could have made it. Maybe next time. Yes, ma'am?
It's Sean Ingram's fault I wasn't there.
Dawn.
Just want that on record.
You know,
For some reason, he wasn't there.
yeah. Next time.
Well, I can tell you, you sure have a good cook.
Well, thank you, yes, and thank Chief Ham for,
I'm sorry
he was
I
our
missed
chef that night. So y'all missed that. It was good.
Love you, Sean.
You know, I'm still a little confused on whether or not this is an annual report. It's called an annual report versus a status report. So y'all bear with me because I'm going to jump back and forth. There's so many cool things going on. I'm not going to limit it to 2016. So
You only got 10 minutes.
10 minutes. That's not what Miss Collins said. I was going to start with some interesting facts. 2016, we had 2,217 calls for service. That's about average for us. We do see an increase every year, usually, at least over time we see an increase. Average response time of 4 minutes, 20 seconds. We're always striving to be better. That's pretty good, but we're always striving to be better. Station 1 ran 46% of those calls. You can see we've had several working fires this year and done pretty well. And y'all can listen to me talk, or you can look at some pictures. I figured pictures are more interesting. This is a little incident at ConAgra recently. This was a little more of an incident. It was an all-day incident at West Fraser, but everything went well. Just one of the residential structure fires. You know, we provide a hazardous materials response to, of course, Russellville, Polk County, and then surrounding counties when requested. This occurred in Yell County recently. Stormy day, pouring down rain. Our guys responded and suited up and mitigated the problem. They were very thankful. That's them going towards the incident. Very bad accident on I-40. It's my least favorite cause, motor vehicle accidents. You know, with all the storms and power outages and everything we had this spring, we found ourselves with a rash of elevator rescues. We've had them through the years, kind of interspersed, but we had several, 6+ in a very short period of time. Training last year in 2016, we did approximately 23,000 hours, averaging 418 hours per firefighter. Takes a lot of training to maintain everything that we have to maintain. Competence. Thanks to Hare Mountain Rescue and Pope County OEM and Jerry Evans in particular, we were able to send 6 firefighters to water rescue training this spring at no cost. So that was really good. One of the things we'll talk about in a little bit, we signed we signed a training agreement with Pottsville, who has recently built a live fire simulator training facility. And this is it. We're working with them, we're training. That's them in one of the compartments over there with the fire. And then they also have a kind of a confined space maze that you crawl through, simulator, is what the other picture is. Good training, we appreciate them. Company inspections, we'll talk about that again in a little bit, but those are an engine company doing a company inspection. Teaching fire extinguisher classes, something our fire prevention office does fairly often. Teach many of those in the year. Public education, so far just this year we've educated 750 plus kids on fire safety. And really, we haven't even gotten into our season. That'll be October, Fire Prevention Month. Status of the new Central Fire Station. It is on target and it is on budget. They're hanging sheetrock in there right now. Well, not right now, but at this time. It's going very well. They say we're going to be in it in December. You know, we're always striving to do better, never happy just being complacent. These are some of the things in 2017, some of the major changes that we've done. We've adopted a new motto, exceptional service. We've restructured our manning without increasing numbers in order to increase fire prevention activities. We've invested in technology. We bought mobile inspector programs for all our iPads that are on the engine. That's working with Ms. Jackamore and James. We've initiated company inspection program in order to provide an annual all-hazard safety inspection for each business and to get to know the community that we serve better. Just since May 1st, we've completed over 30 company inspections. In light of this rash of elevator rescues, we put together and conducted an elevator rescue class, and there's a whole lot more to that than just getting the door open and getting somebody out. That was very interesting. We created an SOP for elevator rescue, put it in place, and we purchased and provided specialized elevator keys for each of the engines to make it a little faster, facilitate getting people out. We signed auto aid agreements with surrounding departments, in particular Crow Mountain and Pottsville, for mutual benefit. We help them in areas that they need help, and they are helping us in areas that we need help. We've already talked about the training agreement with Pottsville, again, for mutual benefit. One of the other things we're working on with Lynn and James is streamlining the burn permit process. We're going to try to make this easier for everybody, and we're in the midst of doing that, so you will hear more details soon. Y'all all had the privilege of hearing the apparatus replacement plan from Chief Vic. That's something we did this year, and that is for your benefit. It's for all of our benefit so that you can plan, budget, and help you make informed decisions. Of course, we are preparing for the delivery of the new 109-foot ladder truck. And there it is. Like the mayor was asking, we have 3 individuals going, actually leaving tomorrow. They're going to inspect it from top to bottom, front to back, underneath, take pictures, make sure that it's everything that it should be before we actually commit to it. This truck, when we talk about getting better, we're always looking for ways to expand our efficiency. We're developing new. These are things that are kind of going along with this change. Developing new truck ops, SOPs that will greatly enhance our abilities to provide life safety and property conservation. We're creating an aerial operator certification that's going to include specialized training in truck operations, technical rescue, and advanced extrication. And that goes along with this next bullet point, is that this truck is going to serve as a multi-purpose apparatus. We're going to move, right now we have an unmanned rescue. This is going to allow us to move that equipment over to a manned apparatus, and it will be a ladder rescue. So they will respond on every confirmed extrication, every technical rescue, as well as structure fires. And again, increased safety of our personnel. We've got 5 outstanding new recruits. Just been amazed at our new recruit class. It's been great. In fact, our last rookie that went to the Arkansas Fire Training Academy, Corey McGee, came back with the Outstanding Rookie Award of his class. And the last thing, this is not a little thing to me. This is what makes it all worthwhile. This is when training, equipment, teamwork, we're a part of the emergency response system. When it all comes together, this is Jim Campbell. He is our 911 director and director of OEM. And I'm happy to say that this was just recently taken. He was discovered, slumped over his desk in cardiac arrest. The system went into effect, and this is him after about 5 stints, and maybe a couple more coming. But he did allow me to use this picture, and I just couldn't be more tickled. This is the way it should work every time, makes it absolutely worthwhile. And that is all I have. Do y'all have any questions for me?
Good job.
Good.
Anybody got any questions? I'll throw one
Thank
out
you.
there. Do you want to share with them the announcement you gave me last week about Kay and Chief Vic?
Well, we have a new fire baby, Maverick Ryan Vick, and he was born last week.
Give them our
Yeah.
congratulations on
Very
that.
exciting.
We're very happy.
Tuesday. You know, I didn't bring a picture. I should have. I should have. I'll have to get him to bring him over here whenever he can.
Thank you, Chief Sloan.
You're welcome.
Okay, Finance Committee. Chair Freddie Harris. Got anything for us?
Well, yes, I do. We met on June the 6th, and if Jerry's around and cares to, we're going to do the update for the general fund budget. It's there. The balance is like 33,000. And I present that, and we passed it, and I present that in the form of a motion to accept this. Anybody have any discussion, to ask Jerry any questions or anything? Okay, then I present that. Number 2 has been pulled.
We got to vote on that, don't
No.
we? We don't? Okay.
No, they can pull
We vote at the end, don't we? In the end?
Okay.
Oh, okay. Oh, do we want to vote on the update of the budget? Just acceptance of it? Just general information?
if you want to.
Well, would y'all like to vote on number
No.
1?
No.
Okay. Number 3. Number 2 is the fact on the scoreboard, Mac pulled it because the school is going to take care of that.
Well, what are they gonna do with the 25,000 a day?
I think that's all included. I don't know, Robert.
Okay.
I just know he said there was no reason to do that. Okay, number 3 is the consideration of a resolution to accept the bid for the B Street Sidewalk project, and we approved that, and if Kurt has something he wants to say, or anyone has any questions on that, okay, I present that in the form of a motion. And number 4, we'll
Okay.
vote on
Wait, we
it.
need to vote on that one.
Okay.
Any questions on the sidewalk bid? You heard the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And
Number
that's approved, Chair.
Okay, number 4 and number 5 are appropriations. One is the election costs for the alderman and runoff race and the rezoning ordinance in the tune of $24,677.22. I present that in the form of a motion.
Council, you heard the motion. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
The other appropriation is for truck repair. It's an insurance pass-through for $2,028.02, and I present that in the form of a motion.
Council, any questions? All right, in that case, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries, Madam Chair.
Okay, tonight we met again, and number one is the consideration of discussion from Keith Frazier. Does Keith want to make his own presentation? Or, anyway, we listened and I present that in the form of a motion.
Okay, Council, I think most of you were here for the discussion. Is there any questions, comments?
It's either do now or think more later.
Yep. Item A actually does not come out of our funding, any of the budget, it goes out of the fuel surcharge, so. If there's no other discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Number two, I present in the form of a motion. It's the consideration of a resolution expressing the willingness of the city to enter into incentive agreement for economic development on Weir Road.
Council, you heard the motion, is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, that motion carries, Madam Chair.
Number three is a consideration for approval of the reimbursement of the expenses to the Arkansas Valley Alliance. It's their monthly bill of $5,925.47. I present that in the form of a motion.
Council, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
The other
Motion
is,
carries.
oh, I'm sorry, got ahead of you there. Appropriation, just pass through for $2,287.21. I present that in the form of a motion.
Any discussion, council? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 4 is approved.
Number five is the consideration of the approval to set up a bank account for the Russellville Aquatic Center. Present that in the form of a motion.
Any questions or comments, council? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Number six was the consideration of the resolution authorizing the mayor to and city clerk to sign a one-year extension. It's our annual agreement with City Corp. I present that in the form of a motion.
Council, you heard the motion. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Number seven is the consideration of a discussion, which we had earlier, to negotiate the sales price on property located on North El Paso Street. And present that in the form of the motion.
Council, you heard the motion. Is there any discussion?
Can we,
What are the details of
can we
this?
change that to, you and you and how many, the attorney and Freddie and Kathy to do the dealing on this?
Mayor, you want to give us?
I think that was the motion.
Oh, yes.
Oh, is that the motion?
Yeah, for
Okay.
us to, the price, but also the terms of the sale.
Yeah.
So is this just to present something back to the
Yes.
council?
Yeah, we're gonna try to get, there's a couple of details we need to agree on and maybe the price, but we bring back a final for council's approval.
The end of this month, right?
Call a special-
That's what we're trying
Call a
to do.
special council meeting if they work out something.
Yeah, if we come to an agreement before, we'll just go ahead and do a special. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That's all I have.
That's all you have. How about the Personnel Committee? Chair
Yep.
Sims, anything going on?
No action this month, Mr. Mayor.
Excellent. That's going to bring us then to old business number 1. All my stuff. Move so much stuff around. Old business 1, consideration of an ordinance amending the zoning code. This is the third reading.
Motion.
Motion to read by title only and dispense the long
Yes.
explanation?
Exactly.
I second that.
All right. We got a motion, Mr. George, second, Mr. Tripp, to dispense with the reading.
The long version.
The long version will read by title, followed by discussion. All in favor of the motion to suspend, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Mr. Smith.
An ordinance amending the zoning code for the city of Russellville, Arkansas, ordinance number 1966, and for other purposes, this ordinance, if passed, would amend the current zoning ordinance, which is number 1966, in regards to area requirements, table of permitted uses in the Central Business District, C1B, which are located in Articles 12, 13, and Article 2, Section 2.9.
No. Discussion? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
Motion.
Second. Motion, Mr.
Adopt.
Wiley, second was, is this second reading?
No, I'll tell you later. You got the debate and motion. You got the debate ahead of the motion.
Well, I guess I did, didn't I?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so now, any debate? No, we need a motion. We got a motion now, and a second, Mr. Westcott. Now debate.
What are we debating on this one? Is this number one?
Yeah, whether we want to change it or not. Now, the motion now is to approve, right, Mr. Wiley?
Yes.
Yeah. I got my motions out of order, so,
Yeah, planning board recommended it.
all right. In that case, Madam Chair, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Mr. Wiley?
Yes.
Separate you two.
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Tripp?
Yes.
Ms. Caruth? Mr. Sims?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Now that'll bring us to old business two. This is the discussion part about a PUD located on Marina Road at Jennifer Lane.
Mayor, I'd make a motion to have council discussion and/or additional public discussion if that needs to be tied into the motion.
That's fine.
I'll second that motion.
Second from Mr. George. All right, Mr. Tripp, discussion.
Mr. Garza, fine, Margaret.
Don't we get to
Mayor,
vote on
we
this
gotta vote
first,
on
Mayor?
that, sorry. We have to vote on that.
No discussion.
To have discussion?
I thought we got to vote to have a discussion.
I thought you
Yes,
said
yeah.
you just did.
Go ahead and vote
You gotta
because
vote on
it's
it to
like
have a
an
discussion.
informal discussion motion, so go
Well, I'm
ahead.
gonna,
Okay,
I said.
all right, so we will vote on that. All in favor of discussion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, now, Mr. Tripp.
Sorry. Mr. Garza, a couple of questions, please. In a brief discussion or two we've had, what is, if this property, 3 point something or 4, give or take acres in that ballpark, what is the number of units that could be developed under the R1 guidelines?
The general rule is when you're looking at R1 property, you can get 3 lots per acre. I did take a look at this and tried to work it as best I could because it's a very odd shape. And in having to keep with the access codes for fire department stuff on how a road would be put in there, I ended up with about 12 lots, which would be the max. One of them, not such a good shaped lot. But buildable. And with that, about 5 of those would have to face on Jennifer Lane to do that.
And what are the specifications for a house in R1? Is there a square footage?
There are no. Any subdivision is governed by covenants. The covenants are the only specifications. And it's the developer's decision to put whatever he wants in the covenants. Other than that, there are none. The city does not have a requirement.
So whether they are 1,000 square foot or 3,000 square foot homes, kind of depend on lot size and whatever the builder would decide to build.
That would be correct.
Build on that? 12. How many is he gonna put on it?
As I stated
lots.
before, Mr. Garza, I'm gonna have another question for you. How does this, as I stated before, I'm not crazy about how what's being presented to us. How does this compare to, I was driving down East Fairway, East 4th Street a few days ago, and the housing development that developed 3 or 4 years ago out there towards Elmira. Noticed there was a playground set and a few other things there on a couple lots off of the street. How does, and I kind of thought of this in the whole public amenity and the attributes and things like that of the area.
Sure.
How does the current design of this compare to other PUDs as far as attributes and, the special characteristics that you would think of a PUD having? The advantages of it. What does it add to the people there?
Well, what this compares, when you're looking at compared to a residential, a standard residential, this PUD, if allowed, what it does, it's a close-knit community. It creates a small community within itself. These people that will come here, they'll have privacy in that they will not have common walls like other PUDs. All the other PUDs that I'm aware of all have common walls to either triplex, fourplex, or it could be up to an eightplex. So they all have common walls, so there's no privacy between the units. This will have privacy, so it gives you a sense of a home. You have a home. All the area is common space. It's all under a POA, so you don't have to mow it. You don't have to take care of it. It's all taken care of for you. And it works well for those that are busy. And as you know, if you go back 20 years in your own life, could you truthfully say you're a lot busier now than you were then? I know I can. We're a lot busier now than we were. I was talking to a gentleman this morning about that. When we were kids, we'd run around everywhere. Now, no way. It's too scary. Parents there's too much fear. So with this development, it creates that sense. Everybody gets to know each other because they are a POA, so they come together. In their POA meetings, they get to know each other. And it's like you have, a young couple here with a couple of kids, and then you have the grandparents, which aren't really grandparents, blood relation. But to the community, that small community, it is grandma and grandpa because they get to know the kids. And they talk to them as they walk, hey, how are your grandkids? And so it becomes like a family type atmosphere in a small community, and it gives it a little bit of safety with the fencing and the gating.
Is, in this PUD, I want to verify this, the streets within this, if approved, would not become city maintenance streets. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so they
They're
would
private.
stay, the maintenance, the requirements would stay part of the POA, part of the agreement.
Correct, just the same as the other 3 PUDs.
Okay. The boat dock that is planned, has that been applied for, or what are the assurances that will materialize?
You would have to ask the developer.
Okay.
He's here.
Mr. Hughes, do you care to comment on that?
We can't do that.
There's been a lot of discussion about home values, okay?
Yes.
The projected sale price of these, or did I hear it, the $140 range, is that right? Is
No,
that
165.
165?
That's the low end.
165 is the low end, and that's per square foot? And then-
Correct. That's the smallest unit.
But is the per square foot? But what,
No, that's
the sale
160
price.
that's the
What's
sale price,
the per square
165,000.
foot price? I've heard a couple numbers, I just kind of want to verify
What are
that.
they, 135 to 155, am I correct?
135 to 150. So what is the guarantee that it's going to bring that? I mean, that there's a lot of risk put into that, and, you know, what if they don't bring that? How does that compare to other home values? And, you know, that's my understanding, that's a good bit higher than even some of the other PUDs and things like that is.
And with that question, I'd have to refer to those that deal with home values all the time, realtor or an appraiser, and I'm neither. So
Okay,
it'd be hard for me to answer that question. Engineering questions, I can.
sure, I give you that. I think that's all my questions for you, Mr. Garza, thank you.
Okay, I think some of the, like the cobblestone, how much the cobblestone, what are they selling for? $143 a square, and they're all pre-sold. And they had one that opened up, resale, and
Ms. Davis, I'm going to have to interject, Mr. Tripp, and everybody that's going to speak. It's very important we get all your comments on the record. Would you step to the microphone, and Mr. Hughes, anybody else that speaks, and counsel, if you'll speak directly in your microphone.
this would be to answer your question.
Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Davis, thank you.
About a month ago, there were 4 new PUDs, 4 new units that came available in Brownstone, which is back behind Regions. 3 of those went pending within 7 days. The 4th one went pending. And then last week, there was one that came up, went pending, and closed all in the same 2 days. So the supply, the need is there. The supply is little, but there is a request and a need for these types of projects.
Thank you. Mayor, again, as I said last month, my point of putting this on here for discussion is potentially allow discussion among council members. And, you know, this is kind of a contentious item. Some people just want to be for it, some people just want to be against it. You know, I stated early on my feeling of it, but I'm open to changes, potential changes to discuss them. But I'll open that up, and Mr. George had asked me a question about it, and he may have dialogue, and some others, I think, are just ready to pass it, and, I mean, put it out for a vote to vote it down, and it may end up voting down, but I think any project deserves the same amount of attention.
Thank you. Now, anybody else want to comment? Mr. George?
My question was, how are we, I'm not a engineer, I'm not a developer, you know, you guys have been very gracious to give us all the information, and then also the concerned citizens have been very gracious to discuss with us their concerns, and yet it is up to us to make this decision, and you know, some of the data we've gotten, we've had to question, is it factual, is it projected, and how do, you know, when we make this decision, it can affect, you know, people's everyday lives, and we want to make sure we do the right thing, but we also want to do what's best for the city as a whole in regards to financial decisions and how much revenue that we gain, and it's very hard to make these decisions without actual facts, you know, the data, and we feel like we've done our best, and you guys, the developers, have done a great job in providing that. And so my real question to Mark earlier was just, how do we know, you know, at some point you have to trust that what people tell you is what it will be. And in my business, people come to me because they trust that I will give them the right information, as I would if I was going to my doctor or a lawyer. So, I mean, I think we can discuss it all day long, but I think we have the information, and at some point we're going to have to make a decision. So,
Anybody else? Council? We do have, I believe, 4 that have signed up to speak to this item. Mr. Garza, did you want to add anything else, or did you get all your comments in and question and answer?
Just real briefly. To answer Mr. George's, or hopefully give him an answer to that, you know, we've had 3 other PUDs, Tula Square, council approved it, and it was successful. Marina Shores, approved, and it was successful.
Yeah.
And then recently Brownstone.
Well, and
it's
that's my,
been
you know,
successful.
the biggest concern from the public has been property value.
Mhm.
And to me, that would be a big concern if I owned a really nice house on a nice area.
Sure.
But if we haven't seen those issues in other areas in our city, then, and that's not been a concern, then why is it now a concern? Is it just because it's on the lake and we don't want $150,000 houses on the lake? I mean, I don't want to have an argument about that. Like, but if that's the concern for that specific reason, then I don't know that that is enough. Because if we've seen it happen and not lower values
Right.
in other areas, then it's just a fear that we're all.
That's what
And
I
I don't-
was just about
I
to say.
can't make decisions based on a fear. I have to have attributable values.
So with that, I'll make a brief comment. You know, our country was built on courage and resilience. We decided that we would fight for our freedom, and we fought. Now, there was still fear. Some of the men in battles, they turned around to run. But we had generals that turned them around and gave them courage to fight, and they did fight, and now we're free. You know, we are the United States of America. With fear can come chaos, and also come questions or comments without a basis of facts.
Right.
With fear, we did present a lot of facts. If you know your biblical history, the Israelites were afraid to go and take the promised land. And what happened to them? You know it. You as a council have a tough job. Okay? It's a tough job. And sometimes you have to make really hard decisions. But I still believe in every one of you. I believe in all of my council members and in my mayor, and I still believe that you're going to do what you think is best for the city of Russellville. And so whatever decision that you make tonight, I believe it's because you know that's the right decision, whichever decision it is. And that's it.
Question for Mr. Garza.
Mr.
We've
Sims?
got a discussion over here about the price, $165 a square foot for the smallest home, or is that
No, that's- would be the
$165,000?
largest. $165,000 for the smallest home.
And that size is?
It's about 1170,
Okay.
and that's heated and cooled only, not the garage.
Okay. Thank you.
It has a garage, and every unit has a storage, also a built-in storage.
Thank you, Mr. Garza.
Thank you.
Mr. Danny Henderson, you're next up. Mr. Hughes, you're in the batter box.
I didn't intend to speak tonight, but I feel compelled after the questions that were asked. So forth. You guys aren't voting on this tonight, are you?
No,
This
sir.
is just a second reading.
Unless
Okay.
we waive the rules, but
Okay,
this
I don't
is
wanna
the second
bore-
reading.
Beg your pardon?
Unless they suspend the rules, but you're correct, this is the second reading.
Okay, thank you. I don't want to bore y'all or repeat anything I've said before, but I'd like for you to remember what I've said, that these small developments don't actually fit into the actual definition of a PUD. Now, they may in some city that says this is our definition of a PUD, but nationwide, if you look at definitions of PUDs, they start at about 100 acres and go up. And you asked, Mr. Tripp, I believe, about playground equipment and so forth, and you notice that Mr. Garza didn't respond to that specifically. It's because there's no room for playground equipment that's in that development. If you look on the minutes of the, if you look on the minutes of the City of Russellville Planning Commission on page 5, it was earlier this year, it specifies that there's 20 houses on 3.27 acres. And people keep getting confused about that, but that's what it is, 3.27 acres. They decided that the engineer, I guess city engineer, someone decided you can't measure out to the center of a paved street as part of your property or drainage area. as being part of your property to build on. So it's 3.27 acres. And the Planning Commission also has adjusted or altered or changed, whatever you want to say, the rules since 2016 in reference evidently specifically to this planned development. They changed it to where they could, on a crowded development like this, you could not only have 6 dwelling units per acre, but you could have 7. They had to do that to allow their plan to pass. I don't think the rules should be changed in the middle of the stream like that. The surrounding neighborhood of this planned unit development, this planned building area, is 100% against rezoning from R1. And in fact, neighborhoods up and down Marina Road and Marina Way are against rezoning these R1 areas to other zoning classifications. When we were discussing the vote with people, trying to encourage them to get out and vote on this, they asked me about that project at Jennifer Road because they were confusing it with the Arbors project. And so I said, no, this is different from that. Well, and unanimously, they were against that 20 houses there on that small lot. People told us that without provocation or without us asking them. They just told us that's wrong to do that. So I think if you ask anybody on the west side of Russellville, do they want to rezone R1 to some of these other classifications, whether it's R20 or C2 or C4 or whatever it might be for multifamily housing, they don't want to do it. And they're afraid, I'm afraid that my property values will go down. You heard me last time say that the most eminent property appraiser in the state has evidence that this has happened at times. I'm sure at times it goes up, but they have proof that at times it goes down. The neighbors are unwilling. We're willing to accept changes in the building plan here. We're willing to do that. Whatever will fit into R1, we'll welcome with open arms. Helen, my next door neighbor, Bob Hope, Becky right here, Dr. Chris Horan, all live within 50 feet. Their property is within 50 feet of this area. We questioned a member of the Planning Commission and asked him, would you accept 20 houses within 100 or 150 feet of your front door? He said, no, I guess I wouldn't. And I think that you might feel that same way about your property values. Thank you so much.
Mr. Hughes? Okay. Ms. Davis, did you want to speak to this? Okay.
Mayor, can I ask a question for clarification? Mr. Henderson brought up the acreage, and yes, as I was a little bit confused, unsure.
Mr. Tripp, we're still not here.
Sorry,
Very
I'm
good.
sorry, I'm
Thank
the
you.
world's worst. So, can somebody clarify for all of us, how much land are we talking about?
The original development is Lot 1, platted subdivision. It's over 4 acres. The 3.21 acres that they're referring to is, according to the PUD ordinance as it sits now, you have to remove all of the roadway and open drainage from the usable area, okay, for the calculation of determining the density. Well, on top of that, we also had to remove Jennifer Lane right away because the property line goes down the center of Jennifer Lane. So we removed Jennifer Lane to give it its full right-of-way. We remove all the roadway that's designed and the open ditches, and that leaves 3.21.
So if it was developed as R1, you would have a bigger space to develop? because the requirements are different than the PUD,
In essence, that's, yes.
a layman's term way of putting it?
Because you would regain the right of way.
So that would explain why some people will quote it as 3-something or early, or low 4, and then, you referenced, Mr. Henderson just referenced the 3.2 something. So it depends on in what zoning
Correct.
you're referencing.
Correct. And as the planner stated, the ordinance was reviewed, the old ordinance, and it was reviewed because density was not quantified. There was no calculation for it. So it wasn't because of this development, but it was this development that sparked the question, should there be a calculation for density so that there's no question about it? Because as we all know, opinions can differ. I could say the moon is green and you say it's white. Some others are going to say it's yellow because it's cheese. So in order to keep the planning commission from having to have so much friction, and as well as then also bring forth to the city council, it was looked at, and some of the items in there were corrected to quantify it.
Mayor, can I ask a question?
Ms. Harris?
I've heard it said about the houses being 50 feet from this project. When you say that, how is the 50 feet calculated? Is it from house to house, or is it property line to property line?
Well, it couldn't be house to house, because in an R1, you have 25 foot for half a roadway. Your full width of a roadway is 50 foot, so you have your right of way. Then you required a 25-foot setback on both sides. So that's another 50, so that's 100 feet. So in this case, where those 4 houses are, it would be 100 foot away, but then you could only count only those houses that are on that side of that road. As the development goes, as you have the houses on the other street that's further away.
So the distance really from house to house is at least 100 feet?
Correct.
And they do fall under that 25 feet setback
They do.
inside that fence? The fence is out there and it's 25 feet to the closest house.
Now, I couldn't say that for sure on the existing houses. We have some of the surveys, but not all of the surveys in our company, but they were done in a meets and bounds situation, and so they may have been built prior to the zoning code.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have one question.
Mr.
Some
Sim?
discussion came up about the playgrounds or whatever. Do the other PUDs have playgrounds?
No. And we've got room for a playground. I mean, I don't know why
How
you
much room
said
does a
that.
playground take?
I mean, we're gonna put, the requirement was they wanted a gazebo, so we put that 8-person gazebo in there, but there's still plenty of room for,
So what constitutes a playground?
I just made that reference because I drove
Yeah, I
by
don't
and
know.
it stuck out to me, and I thought of this and compared the two in my mind. That's the only reason why I brought
yeah,
that.
I just built one for my 2 grandkids, which I wish I would've bought one instead. It took my son and I 12 hours to put this thing
Yeah, I've been down that road.
together, yeah.
$2,500 or later, and I could have bought one.
You could have put it together in 4 hours. The instructions take 8 hours to go through. But, it only takes up a space 6 by 14, and it's got 2 swings, a monkey bar, and then it's got the tower, and then the slide and stuff. And my grandkids love it.
But now, if these houses are really for young professionals and retirees, do they really need such
No.
facilities?
They're there to come home to relax and then back to work. And on weekends, they're probably Little Rock or vacation. And you stop and think, if you have retired folks there, are they going to use the playground? No.
And as far as density, other places in town that have a comparable density?
If you're looking at the 4 acres, which would be, the density, in an R2 situation, the development that Mr. Tripp discussed on Fairway, there's 20 units in a 4 acre. I can't remember the name of the subdivision over by the airport. No, not Ashbrook. No, by the airport. It starts with an S. It's right down by the creek. It's a dead end, but it also
So we do have properties in town that are meet this density, but they're not PUDs, they're R1.
Yes.
So the PUD puts further restrictions on these properties.
Well, it wouldn't be R1, it'd be R2.
Okay.
There are two densities that meet the same thing. And that's what I had stated at the beginning, is that if you took the land mass, after you take the roads out and all that stuff, then the density is just 200 square feet short of R2 lot sizes.
Mr. Garza, you
Yes.
stated that the similar places around town to this had 20 units on 4 acres. What do you show around town that has 20 units on 3.21 acres or 3 acres?
If you looked at R3 units, they would. But we have 4 acres.
Well, you have 3.21 usable
Yeah,
acres.
but there, when we're talking 4 acres, I'm talking their streets as well. The 3.2 is without our streets. If you add the streets and everything, just like I am with theirs, we have 4 acres. So I took that same footprint, including the right-of-ways and everything, because you have to, because I can't take their streets out. You know, I have to look at it as a whole, with their right-of-ways and our right-of-ways, to make a comparison.
My street's a good example of that. I have 1.91 acres, and the city, the street comes right through my property. I maintain both sides of the street. If I don't, it doesn't get maintained. And so I can't build anything over there, but I still own it. And a neighbor tried to put a culvert in to get into his backyard. And fortunately, because I own it, I prevented that. And so you get into issues like that, but I mean, I still maintain that. I still pay taxes on it. He's gonna pay taxes on 4 acres, even though he only can build on 3.1.
I looked at Marina Village, just down the street too.
That's me. yeah.
Okay, I think there were 16. I got 16 lots in 4 acres.
16 lots and 4 acres. And for clarification, last month I stated that I live, Danny, you were right, Mr. Henderson, Mr. Simcox, y'all never did show up to measure. I said I live within 100 feet of high-density properties. It's only 83. I measured it.
Okay, council, anything else?
All right, if I may ask Mr. Henderson, if he, just for clarification, are you on the same page as far as the acreage that Mr. Garza, are we all on the same page?
I'm just going by what I can read in the Planning Commission report, said that they had to change it back to 3.27 acres. And I think I have a copy of it in my folder over here, and I can show it to you. But I just want to clarify, Freddie, that I wasn't trying to mislead you on the footage there. Jennifer Drive is about 15 feet wide. It's very narrow. I think you've driven down it.
I have.
Drive down it again and see how close Helen's house is to the other side of the road. That is well within 50 feet. And her property is within 50 feet, and so is Bob Holt's and Becky's and Dr. Haran's.
Any other discussion, council? Then that brings us to old business 3, consideration of the ordinance, second reading.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we dispense with the required 2 more readings and read this one time by title only.
Second.
Council, we have a motion and a second to dispense with this third reading, read it one more time by title only with a short explanation. All in favor of the motion to suspend, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
I think let's call the roll.
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Mr. Wiley?
Yes.
Mr. Sims?
No.
Mr. George?
No.
Ms. Caruth?
No.
Mr. Tripp?
No.
Mr. Brown?
Yeah.
Ms. Harris?
No.
Motion fails.
Okay, the motion to suspend fails. Before we make Mr. Smith read the entire ordinance, does somebody want to make a motion to suspend for the second reading only? Just the reading.
Mayor, I make that motion.
I'll second that.
Motion, Mr. Tripp, second, Mr. George. Let's call the roll on that.
Mr. Tripp?
Yes.
Mr. George,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Westcott,
Yes.
Ms. Caruth,
Yes.
Mr. Wiley,
Yes.
Mr. Sims,
Yes.
Ms. Harris.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, for the public, just so you all understand, the only thing we're reading is, or waiving, we don't want Mr. Smith to have to read all of these pages word for word. We're gonna read the title and then we'll have, a third reading next month. We're not waiving the third reading, okay? Mr. Smith?
An ordinance rezoning certain realty in the city of Russellville, Arkansas, and for other purposes. This ordinance, if passed, would rezone property located on Marina Road at Jennifer Lane, further described in the ordinance as attachment A, and commonly known as Hudson Harbor, from R1 to Planned Unit Development, PUD.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Then that will bring us to new business one, consideration of an ordinance to rezone property on Bradley Cove Road.
Make a motion, we suspend the rule, agree by title only with short explanation.
Okay?
Second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second to suspend the rules. Let's just go ahead and call the roll.
Mayor, clarification. First reading only or all readings?
All readings.
All readings. So, everybody clear? We're,
For clarification, this is the land that we found, or came up as kind of the weird road project to, that like where Flying J sits is
Yeah.
currently zoned R1, is that
it's
correct?
commercial, has been commercial, will always be
20 years.
commercial, but it's zoned
So
R1.
if it's if it's a contentious subject, then we're kind of in a tough spot because.
I would think the remedy would be quite complicated, yes.
Okay.
So, all right, so let's get the vote out of the way to suspend the rules.
Mr. Wiley,
Yes.
Mr. Westcott,
Yes.
Mr. George,
Yes.
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Tripp,
Yes.
Ms. Caruth,
Yes.
Mr. Sims.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, Mr. Smith.
An ordinance rezoning certain realty in the city of Russellville, Arkansas, and for other purposes. This ordinance, if passed, would rezone the area around Bradley Cove Road that is further described in the attachment labeled Exhibit A that is currently zoned R1 to C2.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
We got a motion to adopt from Mr. Wiley and a second from Mr. Westcott. Discussion. In that case, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Or should we call the roll? Yeah, call the roll.
That's 100%.
Mr. Wiley,
Yes.
Make them be public.
Mr. Westcott,
Yes.
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Tripp,
Yes.
Ms. Caruth,
Yes.
Mr. Sims,
Yes.
Mr. George.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Item 2, consideration, this is a resolution setting a public hearing to vacate a right-of-way. Mr. Smith, remind me, we looked up the date, July 7th, our regular council meeting.
Yes, July
17th.
17th. Yes, July 17th.
Yep.
Motion.
Motion, Mr. Wiley.
Second.
Second, Mr. Westcott. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 3 is the discussion for an ordinance to rezone property from R3 to PUD on North El Paso. Need a motion to discuss.
Mayor, make a motion to have that discussion.
We got a motion,
Second.
second, Mr. Westcott. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, discussion. This is the commonly referred to as the Salter property. And Mr. Salter has signed up to speak.
Mayor, just to save everybody maybe, just out of curiosity, just by a show of hands, is there anybody in this room that has an objection to this project? The way it's presented, the potential rezoning, is there anybody in here that has an issue with this?
It is a PUD.
Thank you. I just want to get that out there in front of everybody.
Mr. Salter?
Yes, I'm Brent Salter with Salter Properties out of Conway. We were here May the 18th to discuss the project and a resolution that was given to us. We have come to an agreement, so we appreciate the city's understanding and willingness to help this project proceed. I do have some, last time I provided some site plans, elevations. I do have some more of those if anyone needs one or would like one. But at the end of the day, the current zoning codes in Russellville do not allow for mixed use, and that's what we're trying to do. So it's roughly 260 residential units and 15,000 square feet of commercial space. A few of the existing buildings on the property will be keeping. So
How many units is there?
it's roughly 260 residential units.
260.
15,000 square feet of retail.
Yes, roughly.
I thought it was 20. It was in the paper even as 20.
Okay, number.
It is 21,562 square feet of commercial space as proposed.
How much?
21,562 square feet of retail as proposed.
I thought that's tremendous.
Cool.
And that'll all be on the west side of the El Paso.
Yes, sir. Some of it, like the old Armory, for instance,
Yeah.
will stay. So some of the storefronts will be on North El Paso. And then we have an east-west drive that we'll be putting in that will also have some on it.
Oh, I misunderstood that. I thought all of the retail section would be facing El Paso. It's not?
No, ma'am.
Mayor, have her talking to the mic.
Ms. Cruz? She's done.
Correct. If you,
Oh, I'm sorry.
You have to pull it up real close, Ms.
I
Cruz.
know. I
Yeah.
forgot. So sorry.
Unless you're through.
I'm through.
What was your question again? I didn't hear it.
Repeat your question so everybody down here will.
What was your
will know.
question?
Well, I knew it was 20,000. I'd read it somewhere. I'm sorry. And you make fun of me over that either.
so if I can show you
But I
this.
thought it was 20,000. And you're
Yes,
saying
ma'am.
it's even more than that.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
21,562. So, but we are utilizing all of the North El Paso frontage that's available. It does have commercial every building, and it does.
You have a timetable as far as, it may be too early to have a timetable for completion, or, I mean, after, a time frame from when all of the zoning
Well,
concerns?
I would say if the stars aligned,
Yeah,
we would be starting in maybe February or March of next year.
cool.
So, but, you know, especially being near this creek, it's very important to be doing your dirt work during the dry months.
Yes.
So for whatever reason, if we can't hit that 2018 date, then it would probably move to 2019 just because of the risk factors that are involved with trying to cut in roads and put in utilities in the middle of the winter.
So how far are you from having everything passed or approved? All the rezoning and everything?
Well, assuming that there's an approval from City Council tonight, everything else would be dealt with Kurt and Mr. Walden at a staff level.
That's what I need to know.
How close is this to the downtown master plan? You guys following some of those? Like
Yes.
the brick and all the same?
Yes.
Okay.
So in the submission for the Planning Commission, there is a narrative of what building materials would be used. And then we would have to submit elevations of each building prior to formal acceptance by the Planning Commission.
Is it a variance of changes in elevation, or just, you got one elevation you have to get to along a creek, or?
If you're talking about finished floor elevation,
Yeah.
then yes, there is, in different parts of the property, there's anywhere from, 2 feet along the creek that will have to bring the buildings up to, if you get to the south end of the property, it's already above the 100-year floodplain. And there's city ordinance that governs where those finished floor have to be.
So presumably, if it was passed tonight, does that kind of help you ensure that dirt work during the dry season, or is there still too much left to feel comfortable about that?
Well, the way that it's presented, we have engaged Barrett and Associates as the civil engineer. They're only going as far as what's necessary to get this approval. And then once this approval gets done, then there's a whole slew of other items, mechanical engineering, finished floor elevations. We're working with the architect already. We've worked with him on, I think, 8 projects in the past. So we are headed in the right direction, but as far as getting plans all the way done, it's not a monetary risk that I can take.
Any other discussion? Questions for Mr. Salter?
Mayor, I'll just state, not a question, Mr. Salter, but thank you for being here and answering questions. But while I generally have stated my reluctance to suspend the rules, I think that I feel comfortable
I think
in
that'd be
that
more
on
appropriate.
this.
Let's get to the next item.
Just trying to.
Okay.
of
Mr.
the
Salter, thank
discussion.
you.
Thank you.
Now, Mr. Tripp, item 4, I believe is where we're at. Now state that. Actually stated in
I
the
didn't
motion.
say I was
Now-
gonna make the motion.
Oh, come
Now,
on.
I'll make a
Come
motion,
on,
we
now.
spend, I'll make, okay, go ahead.
We're gonna wear that W key out on Kathy's
Okay,
keyboard.
I move that we dispense with the required readings and read one time by title only. It's not that we're suspending any rules. We're following the rules by dispensing with the required readings.
I'll second
That's my
that.
motion.
So we're gonna read it one time and vote.
Title only.
Everybody got it? There was a second from
Why?
the other
Me.
W? Okay. All right, so we're gonna vote on the suspension of the rules
Is that for all reasons?
for all 3 readings. You wanna call the roll?
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Mr. Wiley?
Yes,
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Tripp?
Yes.
Ms. Caruth?
Yes.
Mr. Sims?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
Absolutely, yes.
Motion carries.
Mr. Smith?
An ordinance rezoning certain realty in the city of Russellville, Arkansas for other purposes. This ordinance, if passed, would rezone property currently from R3 to PUD that's located at 501 North El Paso Avenue, further described in the attachment labeled Exhibit A and commonly referred to as the Village at Russellville.
motion to adopt.
Second.
Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second. You want to call the roll?
Mr. Wiley?
Yes,
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Tripp?
Yes.
Ms. Caruth?
Yes.
And Mr. Sims?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Mr. Salter, does it mean anything one way or the other to you if we engage the emergency clause?
I don't think you need it.
Okay. Congratulations, sir. Thank you very much.
We look forward to this.
Yes.
Item 5, discussion of an ordinance to amend the Russellville zoning code. This is the discussion.
Is this tied to number 6?
Yes, ma'am.
Gotcha, okay.
Mayor, I'd like to have a motion to discuss.
Thank you, Mr. Tripp. Motion to discuss, item 5.
Second.
Second, Mr. Westcott. All in favor, say, let's call the roll. Yeah, that's how we decided we're gonna do that, right?
Mr. Tripp?
Yes.
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Wiley?
Yes,
Mr. Sims?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Ms. Caruth?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, Mr. Tripp, you wanna start us off then, since you made that motion,
I need a
or not?
pretty good
I don't want to put-
detailed.
I didn't mean to put-
No, absolutely. You know, I presume this is going to be a very, you know, potentially hot button issue, and I'd just like to know every detail possible about this, the ins and outs, and because when it comes time to vote on this, I want to be sure that I I know everything about it to make it the best decision I can make.
Well, I think on this one, aren't we just putting it in our table of permitted uses? We just don't, it's a new, something we've never had. Yeah, Mr. Smith, you do.
Well, there's only just two things. One, the amendment that was passed for zoning purposes, it's required that they be zoned the same way as you would a pharmacy in your city. And so that's what, first, if you look at the attachment, page 3, and that's what the new addition is it places it pharmacy and also slash the dispensary. Second, it's changed from a permitted use to a special use permit in the four C zones, and that was the other change.
And that was all by the state.
Correct.
Actually, it was all written in the ballot, wasn't it?
Yes.
So it's
Well-
voted on by the people. It's even harder to change than most stuff, isn't it?
It's, the amendment requires that you treat them the same, so that's why they're merged together. And so what you do for one, you have to do the other, but it's allowable to have a special use permit for those.
Right.
As long
But-
as you treat them both the same.
I think it was, I didn't see this myself, but I heard that it was reported on one of the Little Rock stations that we were looking at changing the footage requirement for the cultivation facility from 3,000 down to 1,500, which is what it is for a dispensary. But you can't change that, can you? Isn't that in the ballot? Wouldn't,
That I don't know, but if it's in the ballot, it can't be changed.
that's the way I was thinking. I heard it. Sorry, council, I should butt out. What else has anybody got on there?
Well, can I say something?
Yes, I wish you
We
would.
got the packet from the planning commission today with the minutes from the meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
And Trey said a few things, and Walden, Planner Walden said a few things, and Dennis Boyd had his comments, and Miller had his comments, Dave Garza had some comments, and so I think everyone gets those planning commission packets, don't you? So read that, and it's pretty, it really helped me today in trying to figure out what it all meant. And
I just picked
so,
mine up.
Well, me and Mr. Sims was at that meeting, so we heard all of it.
so it answers some of the questions tonight. We pretty much need to do this, or should do this, right?
Well, we
Mr.
gotta
Smith?
do this.
Well, yeah,
We have to.
we really need to.
Okay.
I think Mr. Tripp may be onto something, even though we're very limited in what we can or cannot do. It's gonna be new and it's probably gonna be controversial, so.
Yeah.
Okay, back before, in November, December, council people were on, different council people were on here, and they sort of addressed this issue about getting ahead of the game with maybe an ordinance or something,
But you can't-
restricting them in the city limits. Is that still a viable thing? Can we do such a thing, or what?
No.
It's possible, but you have to refer the ordinance to ban it to a vote of the people.
You do have to do that, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
That's in the amendment.
It'd
Is
be
there a
again
time
to vote in
frame?
your city,
So they put some teeth in that, or that,
yeah.
Is there a time frame in which that has to happen?
I don't believe so, but I'd have to double check on that. But off the top of my head, I think it's, if you propose to prohibit those type of sales, you have to send that ordinance to the people for election.
Wait, so are we saying there is an ordinance that prohibits these from being built in the city limits?
no,
There's
Okay,
the-
there is
There
not.
can be.
No,
There's the ability
I'm not
to.
for that.
there could be, but you gotta take it to the public so
Yeah,
they
yeah.
can vote on it.
I got you. I just wanted clarification.
Mr. Smith, isn't this just kind of lining us up with state law?
It is permissible under state law.
I think the general feeling for why we might want to do a special use permit, it gives us one more look at, make sure that everything is
We have time.
proper.
Yeah.
But there's very little we can do other than voting it completely out of our community. That's an option, but the people
But-
would have to vote it out.
But right now, it's in our best interest to approve this change tonight. Is it not?
Explain that.
But there's not no hurry on this though, is there?
Well,
Well, I'm
there
not
is
sure.
Section 3 of this ordinance makes it go into effect immediately.
I'm thinking that,
Pretty
there's
soon
been
they're
some
gonna be
discussion, there's
issuing-
been some questions answered, and I thought that the application period, if you want a license for a dispensary, begins July 1. And so if you want this in, it would be hard to do this after somebody's already applied, would it not?
Right.
So if you want it in, you might keep that in mind. It's up to the council what you want to do.
But this would in no way stop them from doing what they want to do.
That's
It's
correct.
just like you said,
No.
it gives us another chance to look at it.
Yeah.
Correct. We're
Okay.
treating it just like you would a car lot or anything else that requires a special use permit. They're
The permit
they're
still
allowed
has to
in
be
your
approved.
town, but we get another chance to look at it and make sure that it's going where it's supposed to go.
Do you think this will be a topic at the municipal league conference?
It's supposed to be
It's-
tomorrow.
Yeah,
It's on there
there's a couple of different things on the agenda, actually.
We'll be hearing about it tomorrow.
Yep. Workplace issues and also zoning issues, I believe.
So you think we need to just go ahead and read it by one first time and then read it again next month? Or you want to pass it?
One time.
Let's dispense with the,
You know,
We need to do
No,
this.
we should pass it.
Okay.
Can I say that? We're gonna go to the municipal league, okay? And when we go up there, there's gonna be a lot of discussion on this. And I believe that we ought to get that in our head a little bit, and then come back and have a special meeting, and then move on from there. But we're gonna have to move fast, but I think we got enough time to listen to what the state's gonna say, what everybody else is saying
but-
in their town.
But there's not much that they can say.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, it was written into the
people
ballot.
voted for it.
And
This-
the people voted it in. So
this
there's not a
was-
whole, you don't have a lot of movement in this.
This was recommended by the planning commission that we do make these
Yeah, I know.
changes, and time is of the essence, and we're certainly not interfering with anyone's right to do what they
No.
need to do. All this does is make it a special use permit, that's all. And so, are we on number 6 yet?
No.
no,
Still
we're
discussing.
still on 5,
Okay.
unless everybody's through.
I'm through with 5.
Any other discussion? Now we're on number 6.
Okay, Mr. Mayor,
Consideration of an ordinance.
I move that we dispense with the required readings and read one time by title only,
Second.
With a short explanation.
with a short explanation.
Love it. Second, Mr. Wiley. Call the roll. We're voting on the motion to suspend, and this is for all 3 readings.
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Mr. Wiley?
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Mr. Sims?
Yes.
Ms. Caruth?
Yes.
Mr. Tripp?
No.
Mr. Brown?
No.
Motion carries.
All right, Mr. Smith.
An ordinance amending the zoning code for the city of Russellville, Arkansas, ordinance number 1699. For other purposes, this ordinance, if passed, would amend the table of permitted uses, which is located in Article 13, which is further attached to the Exhibit A, which would merge the pharmacies with medical marijuana dispensaries and also change the pharmacy and now the new merger from permitted uses in all the C zones to special use permit to all the C zones.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Any other discussion, council? Call the roll.
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Mr. Wiley?
Yes.
Mr. Sims?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
No.
Mr. Tripp?
No.
Ms. Caruth?
No.
Motion carries.
Motion
Yeah,
carries.
5-3.
All right, that'll bring us to item 7. This is consideration of the resolution supporting federal and state legislation to ensure collection of sales tax.
Mayor, I'll make a motion for consideration of the resolution copy that Ms. Collins put on that counter today, that It says Tripp's version. After our agenda meeting last week, I felt like you guys had asked me to kind of try to put some stuff together. Sorry, Lynn, I'll talk into the mic. The Municipal League has provided basically a form letter with notes and some points of, because they've been pushing, advocating this for years. Spoke with a gentleman today. He was a mayor in southern Arkansas in the mid-1980s, and he remembered it being discussed by Don Zimmerman back in the 80s even. And then added some local specifics to it, to Russellville, into it. My thought on this was to send it to our state delegation of our local representative and senator, as well as the governor's office. I believe even today, Mr. Smith had sent me something late this afternoon where on the federal level, Representative Womack had been part of a bipartisan group that was reintroducing something. I've heard him state several times it was an issue to him that he felt dearly about. But regardless if that happens on the federal level or not, it can happen on a state level. My concern is if it does happen on the state level, that we don't need the state to retain all the tax monies. It needs to be distributed like any other tax does. You know, there's two parts to this. It needs to be a level playing field for any brick and mortar place of business. But number two, if it does get collected, it needs to come to the local governments, counties and cities. But because as this goes on and online sales grows, it's going to continue to hurt our local budgeting process. It greatly affects essential services such as fire and police protection. It affects parks. It affects everything about our city. This is not a tax increase. I believe the law currently states that we're all supposed to independently and personally report what we purchase online at the end of each year, and I'm probably as guilty as everybody up here that doesn't happen. So it's already supposed to be happening, but this is just a different enforcement mechanism. It puts it in line with the traditional sales tax, and this is just sending the city's intent to the state to say, we request that you address this, and when you address it, send the local portions to the local communities.
And that's a motion.
And that's my motion.
And I'll second it.
All right, discussion.
Sorry. It's kind of soapbox.
If this passes tonight, I'll be glad to take it to Mr. Zimmerman down at the Municipal League.
And as you noticed, the version that on here, I spoke with the mayor earlier, and Mr. Smith, is placed for all of us to sign it, just hopefully to give it a little bit more of a personal touch. I feel very, very firm and dearly about this because you heard Mr. McCoy talk about our, he's always talking about our sales tax. The sales tax, this, we grow, we sink, we go up, we end the year at 1% over, that our total transactions probably far exceed that. It's a form of leakage. We've all talked about retail leakage to other communities. This is a form of leakage.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are we going to encourage other municipalities to do
Oh, they're already
similar?
doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where this came from. The
That's
league
already
has
doing it.
501 cities to sign it. I would be surprised if more than.
And I would hope that the county would follow suit with this and join our efforts on this because they're just as affected by it as we are.
As the council, Mr. Tripp, thank you for doing this thing in such a short period of time. That's a quick turnaround, and it was good.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, we got a motion and a second for adoption. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can we get that typed up and get everybody to sign?
We're signing.
We're signing.
Sign it? We're gonna use that.
We're all ready.
I need another motion.
Motion to adjourn.
We can do that after we adjourn, can't we? Isn't it
Yeah.
still legal?
Pass it around.
Yeah.
Or you wanna wait?
No,
How do you wanna do this?
Okay, Sam?
I'm fine with it being signed after adjournment.
Sounds good. All right, so, did I hear a motion to adjourn?
You did.
You did.
All in favor?
Aye.